It is the calm before the storm as rookies report to Denver Broncos training camps in just a few days, and I can hardly wait. And as we are talking, we have late round Denver Broncos draft picks rocketing up depth charts, rocketing up positional rankings for the entire NFL, and we've got a lot to break down in this video. If you're a diehard Denver Broncos fan, it helps me out a lot if you would like and subscribe. Just past 11,000, and definitely could not have done it without all the loyal Broncos fans. Love reading the comment section, have absolutely loved this entire journey. So let's dive in. So we had Pro Football Network come out and give their top 100 rankings, and you see certain teams just like hogging up all 4, 5, 6, 7 slots. It's like the San Francisco 49ers. Most of their offense is on Pro Football Network's top 100 list, and the only Denver Bronco to get that list is our boy Patrick Surtain II. And that is a little bit discouraging. And I think my first question for all y'all would be, this time next year, if the Denver Broncos were to make the giant leap forward, we all think they will, who are going to be the 2 or 3 Denver Broncos who are joining Pat Surtain as one of the top 100 players in the NFL? I think without a doubt, if Quinn Meinerz continues his trajectory from the end of last season, Quinn Meinerz is going to be on that list. I also think whichever one of our edge rushers ends up making the jump that we think they all will, whether that be an entire healthy season from Baron Browning on a contract year, whether that be Jonathan Cooper keeping up the momentum he had. You hear Vance Joseph just rave about Nick Bonito. Could Jonah Ellis join him on there? Or could it be perhaps one of our running backs who I'm really high on, that we're going to get to some of the news about our running backs here in just a second. But great article in here about the problem that comes with having a top 100 dude. When you have a Pat Surtain and all of your peers are saying, hey, he's the best corner in football, the problem becomes, well, that means a quarterback, if they're smart, is just going to pick on whatever other corner you have. And that's exactly where we are at right now with the Denver Broncos. And so one of the training camp battles that is going to be the most interesting is going to be who is that other cornerback next to Pat Surtain. We know we're already in really good shape with Jaquan McMillian being that nickel corner. He really flashed last year and kept that sustained, that like flash lightning bolt in a pan kind of moment, kept it throughout the entire season. And so the question becomes like, all right, who's going to be the guy who steps up? And I love in this article that they went back to the late, great Darrent Williams. One of my saddest times as a Broncos fan, I remember I was in like middle school or early high school, and when he was shot at the nightclub in Denver, and he had talked about just the stress that comes with playing next to Champ Bailey. And he said, the problem with playing next to a Champ Bailey is it's all about you then, because a quarterback who's smart whatsoever is always going to choose somebody else. So if you're this somebody else, he said, deal with it, be ready for it, and you actually have to want it and say, come at me, bro. And so the real question is, what corner is going to step up and say, come at me, bro? And who do we think that's going to be? And so we've got a lot of different players out there who have a high ceiling and, a low floor. And so the question is, who is most suited to do that? And so really the leaders of the clubhouse are Riley Moss, Levi Wallace, Kris Abrams, Draine, and then also some guys who we saw play last year in Damarri, Mathis, and Fabian Moreau. So we're going to talk about each of those super quick here, and then keep going on. So if we talk about who it's going to be, the first person that we threw at it last year, I think it would have been Riley Moss, but Riley Moss got injured in the preseason, and then he ended up playing limited spots as a special teamer late in the year. So Damarri Mathis last year, we'd picked him in the 4th round and had very, very high hopes on him, and he actually started the year but had a ton of penalty issues, and so he was actually benched after week 7. Now, that week 7 time frame, that's like when that defensive revival happened, and we went on a 5-game winning streak and won games that people didn't think we had a chance of winning, and won in Buffalo, held Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs to 2 touchdowns in 2 games, and like our defense balled out of control and never get the credit for that. So he was benched for Fabian Moreau. But in the last game of the season, Fabian Moreau was really, really targeted and exposed and had 102 catches or 102 yards allowed against him, and gave up a touchdown on only 8 targets. And so the question becomes, ooh, man, who is it who could step in and pick that up if it's not Damarri Mathis or Fabian Moreau? And I think the leader in the clubhouse and the person we all should be rooting for is definitely going to be Riley Moss. So we remember Riley Moss was one of the first people that Sean Payton really stuck his neck out for and said, like, hey, I really want to go get him. And Coach Vance Joseph is obsessed with him and talks about, like, he fits the physical traits of what you would want in a corner two perfectly. He's a little bigger and, like, insanely fast, and has, according to Vance Joseph, has the bring it chip on your shoulder that you need for the job. But man, 6 foot and ran a 4.45 40, really played exceptional ball out of Iowa. And so what we need is we need him to step up and do that. And the hope would be that we went out this season and we got a person to run our defensive back room, who used to be a head coach, or used to be an assistant coach with the Wisconsin Badgers, used to be a Denver Broncos secondary member himself, former safety Jim Leonhard. And everyone is raving about him. A lot of people wanted him as a defensive coordinator. Green Bay Packers interviewed him for that role. And so to have him as like a third-tier coach on this team is incredible. And what we hear is that Vance Joseph said he's a great teacher at the position. We have a lot of young players who have to get better at their fundamentals, and he's the perfect fit, the perfect person to do that. And so I think with Jim Leonhard giving this tutelage to Riley Moss, he could really step up and do that. If for whatever reason we do not see that jump out of Riley Moss, I think we also have a plan B or C, and that is the fact that we went out and got Levi Wallace in this offseason, and he had 70 starts over his career last season alone. He's played for both the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and last year he had 38 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 5 pass breakups. So I do think we have a tremendous plan C if plan A, in my mind, which would be Riley Moss. Plan B would be Fabian Moreau, could step into that. But it's good to have all these really irons in the fire and all these fishing poles out there, and you just hope you get a big old salmon jumping on one of them. So very curious what you all think about that. Last thing I just thought was an incredible article to read here was Cecil Lammey, who is with 104.3 The Fan, wrote this incredible article, just kind of hyping us up for the preseason. And one of the things that it really talked about that I loved was hyping up Audric Estime, and just really talked about what he thinks Audric Estime could be in this backfield. Kind of likened him to, like, could he be the new CJ Anderson, that we got him as a 5th-round draft pick, and a lot of people had him much, much higher than that. And so we got him. Dude is absolutely yoked. He was nicked up and had a knee scope during those voluntary OTAs, but all signs lead to we will see him taking snaps even just this week. And the cool part about him is reading this line here where Cecil Lammey talks to tons of scouts and text dudes all the time and says that this 5th-round draft pick out of Notre Dame is one of the most powerful runners to come into the NFL, and not just this year, but over the past 20 years. And so if that's truly the case, and we could get one of the most powerful running backs in the entire to come into the NFL over the past 20 years, and knowing that we also have a speedster in Jaleel, and knowing that we got Javonte in a contract year, and knowing that we got one of the best pass-catching running backs in Blake Watson and gave him $275,000 in guarantees as an undrafted free agent, and that we still got Samaje Perine, it's like all of a sudden our running back room is deep, and that is a very, very good thing. So very curious. Let me know in the comments, who do you think is going to win that starting cornerback role on the other side of Pat Surtain, and how hyped are you about a running back room this year? As always, we got a ton to believe in.